Good evening everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Hero Showcase. Today we'll be looking at the Master of the Bow, the Ranger. Now as a disclaimer, I am used to the air trajectory of a ninja, so you will notice that I am a terrible shot with the Ranger. Ranger has some of the highest single target DPS just by plinking away with their arrows, and their AoE damage in teamfights through explosive shot. And if someone gets too close to you, you can always just whip out your axe to smack them around for a little bit. It's a fairly simple class with a very high skill floor, because if you can't land your arrows, you're not going to be doing any damage. To start things off, we're going to talk about the Ranger's passive, and a skill that might as well be considered a passive. At level 1 you get the passive, this is Bow Strength. All it does is affect the trajectory of your arrows, making them travel farther and slightly faster. Then at level 10 you get Envenom. Turn the skill on, deal more damage. Easy. At 13 you get a very useful leveling skill, this is Summon Arrow. Push the button and receive 5 arrows. That's all it does. It's also very useful if you carry an infinity bow. Now Ranger has 2 melee skills that I will discuss right here out of order. They are Kick and Maim. Kick is a short range, low damage, 2-second silence, and Maim is a short range, low damage, 2-second slow that also interrupts. But at 30 you'll get one of the Ranger's first real skills. This is Explosive Shot, and this can be considered your bread and butter skill. You press the button, load up an explosive arrow, and the next time you shoot an arrow, it'll launch an explosive shot that deals heavy AoE damage in a beautiful little firework pattern. It does great damage, it's got a low cooldown, and it's fairly easy to land, so make sure you spam this thing. This is going to be your main source of damage, so make sure you use it as often as you can. It's important to point out that while your arrows are affected by explosive shot, they will be more affected by projectile drop, giving them a slightly shorter range. Level 34 you get probably the most desired skill in the game, this is Track. Track consumes 1 compass to give you the approximate coordinates of any player you want anywhere on the map. Makes it extremely easy to find people and find players to kill. And Sneak just removes your nameplate, exactly as if you were sneaking. At level 53 you get your first kiting ability, this is Ice Volley. Just like Explosive Shot, you load up a volley of ice arrows, except Ice Volley shoots about 5 arrows that do very minimal damage, but have a heavy slow attached to them. While it can be used to keep your enemies in range, I would say the best use of the skill is to keep your enemies away from you. This is because a Ranger in melee range is a dead Ranger. At 58 you get the coolest skill in the game, this is Grappling Hook. You load up a grappling arrow and you shoot it, whenever it lands it'll pull you towards that target. If you hit an enemy, it'll pull them towards you. It's great for chasing, it's great for running away, and after the crash goes off, you'll actually gain jump boost 3 for a short amount of time. Then at 23 you'll get the Ranger's Stealth. This is Camouflage. Camouflage turns you invisible as long as you don't move, and you're standing on a natural surface. Natural surfaces include sand, grass, dirt, and other things you can find in nature. And it pairs very nicely with the Ranger's final skill, this is Aim Shot. You hone your vision on your target for a few seconds, which you can do without breaking camouflage, and after you've locked on, you'll launch an arrow that cannot miss, dealing extremely high damage. The locking on period is rather long, but you can shoot arrows while locking on. Just make sure an enemy doesn't get out of range. Now while you're locking on, if an enemy takes cover and you cannot see them, your shot will miss. But if you've already locked on and your enemy takes cover, the shot will pierce through the cover and hit them. Take this into note while you're planning your aim shot. If you know that they can easily walk behind a wall before you can lock on, don't start casting the skill. Now playing as a Ranger is extremely straightforward. All you have to do is shoot arrows at people and make sure the arrows actually land. Doing this, however, is not as easy as it sounds. Landing arrows against quickly moving targets or targets that know you're trying to put a beat on them is pretty difficult, especially since most players know how to dodge arrows fairly well after leveling 65 levels through skeletons. That being said, use Ice Volley to keep enemies not moving too fast or keep them away from you, Grappling Hook if a melee class gets too close, and keep peppering your enemy with Explosive Shot and Aim Shot whenever you can. If an enemy is up close and personal and revving up for one of their signature moves, don't be afraid to use Kick or Maim to interrupt the cast. It'll buy you a little bit of time to Grappling Hook away. It is very important though to know that you cannot get close to an enemy. Kiting is your best friend. Unlike a wizard who has the instant mobility of Blink, Ranger has to rev up their Grappling Hook mobility or just use the slow of Ice Volley to get away. So use and abuse the fact that you have the longest range in the game by a mile. Or just get a punch 2 bow, that works great too. So if you want to pretend that you're Legolas, shoot explosive arrows at people, forage for food, track down people from across the other side of the map, and stalk people in plain daylight, pick the Ranger, and unleash your inner Oliver Queen. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Hero Spotlight. See you kids next week. This is Arl, signing off.